Hi everyone, just making a short presentation here showing how I decommissioned my old security system and replaced it with the new connected alarm panel. This is a job I've wanted to do for a couple of years now, and I guess like a lot of people in COVID semi-isolation, I've finally got the time to get after it. I suspect there's a lot of people out there who have stopped using their old wired alarm systems. Maybe they got tired of paying the monthly monitoring charge, or maybe their old system just didn't work anymore for them. Our alarm system was installed when we built our house, so the electronics here are almost 30 years old now. Now the system performed pretty well, but it's technically obsolete now, and it would cost us a fair amount of money to replace it if, say, it ever went on the fritz. Now, in addition to paying $20 a month for monitoring with this system, I also have to pay another $25 a month for the landline that connects us to the monitoring service. And like most of you out there, we have cell phones, and we almost never use our landline anymore. All we seem to get is those annoying scam marketing calls at supper time. So we've been looking to get rid of the landline in any event. So going with the connected alarm, I can cancel the landline and the monitoring service and save $45 a month. The connected modules you see here were $99 Canadian each. So based on that, my payback is going to be about 4 months, just a little over 4 months. Now I call this a moderately complicated do-it-yourself project. The wiring itself is not too complicated. And if you've already got some experience installing smart home devices like speakers or video doorbells in your home, I don't think you're going to find this too much of a challenge. So on these next slides, I'm just going to step through the process I followed in getting the new system up and running. What you see here is what the inside of the old box looked like. This jumble of wires I found pretty intimidating at the beginning, but it turns out that half of these wires are not really connected to anything. You'll find that the cables running out to each of your sensors have 4 wires inside them. But most of your sensors are only going to use 2 of those wires. But instead of trimming those unused wires off, the installers often just mangle them here into a ball and stuff them in the box like you see here. Now before I started pulling anything apart here, I made a call to the monitoring company to take our system offline, because I didn't want an alarm to go off accidentally while I was fooling with it. And then the next thing I had to do was disconnect the power. So the backup battery was attached to these 2 pins here. I removed the backup battery. And then this is where the AC power comes in. And I traced this cable back out to the transformer. This is the old transformer here. And what I did was I just cut this wire off here. And so that rendered the old panel completely dead, and I felt I could work on it safely. So the next thing I did was to identify the terminal connections in the old system. You can see here on the main board here the printing below each of the terminals saying what they are. This was a 16-zone system, and the power terminals are over on the left side, and the zone terminals spread out here to the right. I've taken 2 pictures here. So the ones with the yellow and green wires are for the 16 zones I had in this system. It took some time to write everything down here so I could make it easier for me to map things over to the new system. Check marks were where wires were inserted in the various terminals. X's, there were no wires in those spots. It's kind of important to know what is connected to all the zones. You know, is it a door contact? Is it a motion sensor, etc.? I already knew that, so I didn't have any problems. If you've had your system for some time, you probably know also what is connected to each of the zones, and if not, it's probably written on the keypad somewhere. You know, when you open the door or the flap to the keypad, usually the zones are written on the inside. So this is the plan I made for connecting the sensors into the new panels. I only have 12 zones to work with in the new system, so I had to combine some of the sensors in the old system together into single zones. For example, I had 4 basement windows, each on their own zones in the old system, and I am mapping those over to a single zone, zone 11, on the new panel, and I'm wiring those in series, and I'll show you how I did that. And similarly, I had 2 water bugs in my sump pits that I'm putting on zone 12. So I was able to take the 16 zones and converge them into 12 here. You've obviously got to label the wires before you remove them from the original panel. So this is what it looked like after I'd labeled the wires and disconnected them. The kit that you buy actually comes with its own labels, which of course I didn't see in time, so I use my own stickies here, but the ones in the kit are smaller and probably easier to work with. So this is what the old panel looked like after I removed all the wires and pulled them out of the box and transferred them over. The only things left attached that I didn't need were 4 wires here that go to the keypad upstairs, and some wires that I believe connect the panel to the telephone system. I don't need these because my cell phone is now the keypad. These are the 2 connected modules that I bought. The one here in the bottom is the main module with 6 zones, and it's also got terminals for connecting to the siren. The one on the top here is called an add-on module with another 6 zones. And I could have bought 2 more of these add-on modules to create a system of 24 zones in total. What I'm doing here is connecting these modules to the Wi-Fi in my house. You can see here on each of the modules the Wi-Fi antenna that's integrated on the board. I've got a link here below to the website, which provides really very detailed step-by-step instructions for the software side of the installation. And I just followed the steps, and I didn't find too much trouble in getting it connected to the Wi-Fi and moving on from there. So next I mounted the 2 modules onto a piece of plexiglass. In some of the videos I've seen, people try mounting these modules inside the old metal box, from their previous panel, and I'm not sure that's a good idea. The Wi-Fi signal is going to be attenuated going through metal, and my furnace room is already a fair distance away from my modem upstairs. So I wanted to use a material that didn't interfere with the Wi-Fi signal. So I did some checking on the internet, and it turns out that plexiglass is actually one of the best materials for that. And I just happened to have some lying around. I think a piece of 1/4-inch plywood would have been all right as well. So here you see the modules mounted to the wall in my furnace room. You notice here holes that I drilled in the plexiglass. I wanted to hide the main cables behind and just pull the wires that I needed through each of the holes up to the panel to connect them at the terminals. So here I was ready then to start wiring up the zones. So here's a look at the wiring for the first zone. The green wire here is connected to a ground terminal. The ground terminals are marked with a G, can see there's a G, and there's a G. And the yellow wires go into the numbered terminals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Here I've got the second zone wired in. So the yellow wire went into terminal 2, and the ground wire is shared here in this common terminal. That's the way these work. So here I've got all the 6 zones wired in. I haven't yet connected the siren. That's another story that I'll get to shortly, and it's one that you need to pay attention to. So this is the expansion module, or the add-on module, the second one. Here I've got 2 motion sensors and 2 glass break sensors connected so far with the yellow and green wires, just like before. But these sensors also require power, so they also have red and black wires that need to be connected here to the auxiliary power terminals. So I twisted all the red wires together and inserted them into the positive terminal, and the black wires were twisted together and inserted into the negative terminal. The last 2 zones here are for my 4 window contacts and the 2 water sensors. Okay, now I have to take you back to your grade 9 science. These 4 cables go out to the basement windows, the 4 basement windows. And if you remember, they were each on their own zone before. But I don't need them on separate zones. All I really need to know is that one of the windows is breached, and it doesn't really matter which one. They're all in the same area. So I connected these wires in series. You see the green wire on sensor 1 gets connected to the yellow on sensor 2, and the green on sensor 2 is connected to the yellow on sensor 3, etc. down the line, kind of daisy chaining them together. So this is what the wiring looked like for the 4 sensors connected in series. I'm basically left with 2 wires here. The yellow wire is from sensor 1, and the green wire is at the end of the chain from sensor 4. And these get inserted into a single zone. Similarly, I connected the 2 water sensors in series. I have 2 sump pits in my basement, and doing it this way, I'll get a notification if the pump fails in either pit. Again, doesn't matter which one, I can easily check to see which one is the problem, so I don't need them on separate zones. This is how I economized and took the 16 zone system down to 12 zones. And this is what the add-on module looked like when I had everything connected. The window and water sensors take up the last 2 terminals here. So this is almost the final product, except for wiring in the siren. And this is where I ran into a snag. I didn't know it, but I actually have 2 sirens in the house. One outside in the eaves, and one is inside a cold air return in the basement. And the wires to the siren were attached to the old panel here. The red and yellow were in the positive terminal, and the green and black wires were in the negative terminal. So here are the siren wires after I removed them. You can see up here there's a red cased cable that goes out to one siren, and a yellow cased wire that goes to the second siren. Now I could have just put these wires into the new panel as is, but the installation instructions give you a big warning, so this is where you have to pay attention. The guidelines are pretty clear. The siren or sirens that you put on the system should draw no more than 24 watts in total. Now I had 2 sirens and I didn't know the power reading on either of them, but I was pretty sure that combined those 2 sirens would be over this maximum. So I figured I'd just go with 1 siren, the internal one. I don't really think a siren outside is that useful anyway. All it does is annoy the neighbors, and I don't think they're going to come over and risk getting stabbed in the neck by some intruder. So really, I just wanted a siren inside, and that would, warn the intruder that, the security system has gone off, and they'd hustle out of there without stealing all the silver. The problem here is I still had to find that siren, and I had to check to see how many watts it was using. So what I did was I took the backup battery and I used it to touch the wires to the siren in short bursts while my wife wandered around the basement trying to locate the source of the sound. And after a few blasts, she located it in a storage area in the basement. Thankfully, it didn't have a finished ceiling, so we were able to locate it relatively easily. So I was able to open up the cold air return. There was a little panel I could take off, and I pulled out the siren, and sure enough, it's a 30-watt siren, and that draws too much power for the new panel. So what I had to do was disconnect this one, and I went down to a local security store and I picked up a new 20-watt siren for $20, and I basically just swapped it out for this one. So all that was left to do was to connect the wires from that new siren back into the panel here. The red-yellow wires into the positive and the green-black into the negative. You see that there's 2 wires here, and I found out from my brother-in-law this is because sirens draw a fair amount of current, and instead of them installing thicker wires for less resistance going out to the siren, they just use the same cable they use for these zones and double them up, and that makes for a thicker conductor. Okay, the last thing I did was to hide that mess of cables behind by taping some sheets of paper to the back of the plexiglass. And you can see I itemized all of the zones here on the paper for future reference. So after installing the hardware and wiring it up, this is the next major step. And again, it's not a problem if you've already had some experience installing other smart devices in your home, like speakers or plugs or lights or video cameras. The Konnected app has an extension called Konnected Cloud, and this is what you use to register the 2 modules and then to delineate the sensors on each, what sensors are on each zone. Then the next thing is to download an app that allows you to monitor and control your alarm system, to arm it and disarm it. And there's a few you can choose from, and I went with an app from Samsung called SmartThings. And SmartThings allows you to connect back to this application and start to be able to see the zones, see what state they're in, and then to go on and arm and disarm the system and control what happens when an alarm goes off. You can set a delay for when the siren goes off. You can say how long the siren will go for, things like that. So 2 applications you'll need to work with. The app from Konnected will show this screen here when your modules have successfully been linked to your Wi-Fi. And the check marks here show that the modules are online. And when you click one of these, you'll go to this screen, which shows you some status information about the module. And also shows this Konnected Cloud area. And this is where you go down here under Manage Zones to set up the zone structure. So when you click Manage Zones, it opens up this window, and you use the plus button to add one zone at a time and give it a name and identify what kind of a sensor it is. So the screen on the left is the home screen you'll see when you open up the SmartThings app. And you first have to link the SmartThings app to your connected cloud. But once you've done that, then you can click on this spot here called Devices, and it'll open up this window to show all of the zones that you've got connected to your security system, and also their current status. So when I took this screenshot, nobody was moving around, so there was no motion found in the foyer or the family room. But had someone been moving around at the time, this would have been highlighted and shown that there was motion detected. Or if a door was open, this would have been highlighted and shown the door status as being open. So how do you arm and disarm the system? If you go back to the home screen on SmartThings, you can see this button here where there's some additional functionality. If you click that, it allows you to load some additional pieces of software. And the one I wanted was called SmartThings Home Monitor. And you click that, it opens up this window that allows you to arm and disarm your system. And it also allows you to determine what's going to happen if the siren goes off. For example, how long a delay until the siren starts and for how long the siren runs. It also allows you to create the notification that will go to your phone. And because I'm monitoring my own system here, I wanted to make sure that the notification that came to my phone would be unique, that it would sound different from the sounds that I get for other messages that come to my phone. And I couldn't find an actual siren sound on my phone. I could probably download one. But for the meantime, this is the notification sound I'm going to be using. I think that should get my attention. I didn't include the water sensors in the arming program. I don't really want the alarm to go off if I have a sump pump problem. So instead I set up an automation here using this. So you click that and I set up an automation that specified what would happen if I get a high water reading in one of the sump pits. So in this case I specified that if a water sensor switch is activated, a notification will go to my phone. I could have caused the siren to sound, but that wasn't necessary. Well, this is pretty much as far as I've gone so far. But I wanted to point out that SmartThings is a really sophisticated program. Now it allows you to control a lot of other smart devices in your home besides just your security system. For example, you can add lights and switches and cameras and speakers, those kinds of things, and control them. And really the sky's the limit in terms of automations that you can create from that. You can find lots of YouTube content on home automation with SmartThings. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that as I go down the line. Okay, I hope you found this presentation useful, and I hope you've now got some additional confidence to go ahead with your own project in the near future. Ciao for now.